Hello and welcome to Ask the Expert Anything, our special segment of the RinggitPlus show where you ask our financial experts anything. For this episode, we have Roshan. How are you doing, Roshan?
I'm doing well, Pang.
I
I
hope you
hope
like
you're
my
doing well
intro.
as well.
I'm
Oh,
good. I'm good.
brilliant. Great. Straight to the point.
Yeah,
Very, very
yeah,
direct.
exactly. So for this episode, we're going to be talking about something that is very important. That can help you save quite a bit of money depending on how much income you have, and that is maximizing your tax relief. Right, we are closer to the edge of the year now. At edge of the year, closer to the end of the year,
And
and
as well.
some of these things are very important. Whether you've done all you need to do with your tax planning, and here's we're also going to share a little checklist of some of the stuff that you can do right now, before the end of the year, of course, to get some form of tax savings, right? But Roshan, I know when it talks about when we all talk about income tax, it's always a complicated subject, very convoluted, a lot of numbers, and people get quite confused about it, right? So before we go into the tax relief checklist, maybe you want to share a little bit more about what are the things that we should be concerned about when it comes to income
Sure.
tax.
Yeah, Pang, it's a great point. Taxes can be very confusing, right? So, excuse me if you already kind of know this, and we're going through some things that are repetitive, but it's very, very important, the kind of basis of where you're, of essentially what you're paying income tax on, right? And a tax relief, which we're going to go through very in a bit, basically what it does is it helps reduce your chargeable income, and the taxes are based on your chargeable income. So as the slide shows here, if your annual income that you get, your total annual income, and that includes any income that is taxable, unless
Hmm.
specifically stated otherwise, is 60,000 ringgit, and you've got tax release of 13,000, which is really just the personal relief and EPF relief together. Those are around 13,000. Your chargeable income is around 47,000 ringgit, which means your taxes are only charged on the 47,000 ringgit as opposed to the whole 60,000 ringgit number, right? So that's
Right.
why the tax reliefs come into play. You're not minusing your taxes directly, but you are reducing the amount of income that is charged taxes. So this is the tax table, right? And basically, at first glance, your brain wants to explode at the numbers and the complications and the kind of way it goes down. So Malaysia has a progressive tax table, right? Essentially, the higher the income, the higher the rate for the additional income. And I know the minute I say that, that's going to confuse some people already, right? And hopefully this table gets to show you a little bit of what I mean by that. So let's say your chargeable income is 70,000 ringgit here. Okay. The first 50,000 ringgit is 1,800 ringgit because it's a mix of an 8% and a 3% charge, and including an initial 150 ringgit. It's only the additional 20,000 ringgit from the 50,000 bracket from before that is charged 14%, which amounts to 2,800 ringgit, which is a total bill of 4,600 ringgit. I already know by saying that out loud, even I was a bit confused by as I was speaking, and I was like, do I have this right? Am I saying the right things? But essentially what it means is when you are in a different tax bracket, it's only the additional income here that is charged the new tax rate. So a
Hmm.
14% tax rate isn't actually a 14% tax rate overall. Your effective tax rate is actually lower. But
Yeah.
when you go to the next 100,000 ringgit bracket, anything above 70,000 up to 30,000 is charged 21%. That's what we mean. So every additional ringgit above the previous tax bracket is charged a new additional rate. And I know that's really confusing,
It is.
but it's a lot better than a flat tax rate, honestly, because like I mentioned, your effective tax rate is much lower. And feel free to ask us more questions on any of the social media platforms if you want more clarification. We're more than happy to help you out there. And Pang, what we've got here is basically what the table itself on the LHDN website looks like.
Yep.
And unless I'm mistaken, this is the 2020 year assessed table. They haven't really updated the 2021 table last I checked.
Yep.
And
2021
this is
table
what
will be out next year when we file for our taxes next year.
correct.
That's their efficiency.
And this is the important thing to note, right? Because you have to spend it this year for these tax reliefs to be applicable, right? Because
Mhm.
the year
Correct.
assessed is 2021. You cannot spend for these tax reliefs in January and expect to offset your taxes that way, because that's not how it works. So the
Yeah.
year assessed 2021, which is now. So this is how it kind of looks like, right? But the important one we want to pay attention to, of course, is here we go. The actionable ones, the things that you can do right now, today, tomorrow, next week,
As long
as
as
long as
before
it's
the end of the
done
year.
Correct. Ideally, not too late to the end of the year because the issue is that everyone else might be doing it, and so there's a backlog. And then if it ends up being the next year, then well played lah, you know. But essentially, here's some of the hot things, right? So PRS very popular, especially for the end of the year. So you get up to 3,000 ringgit worth of PRS can be used as a tax relief. Life insurance up to 3,000 ringgit, education and medical insurance up to 3,000 ringgit. Two separate products, but they build it in one category.
One. Mhm.
This is the popular one, Pang. Lifestyle plus the additional lifestyle which they've continued to give,
Yep.
which is 2,500 ringgit and 2,500 ringgit. Just keep in mind that the lifestyle itself, the lifestyle relief on its own, the first 2,500 ringgit has a lot of other things in it as well, right? So you've got gym memberships and internet
Yep.
subscription fees and books and things like that. The additional 2,500 ringgit is only for laptop, smartphones, and tablets
Hmm.
bought within the year of assessment. So just remember to pay attention to the fine print.
Fine
But
print.
actually, I've got an example later about this one that we can use to give people a bit more clarity. Then there's local tourism, which the government is given to help stimulate the local tourism sector. That's up to 1,000 ringgit. Be sure to make sure that it's a registered
Accommodation.
player, yeah, registered accommodation. It's not you don't automatically get it irrespective of where you spend. It does matter where you spend it.
Yep.
There's also education fees. So, but this is very particular, right? There are terms and conditions applied to what kind of courses. So you've been thinking about starting a degree. I'm not sure whether the semester is ongoing, actually. I don't know if any semesters start in November and December. So might not be great for the year end lah. Okay, but essentially this is one thing that you can do to kind of offset your taxes on that front. And of course, we've got medical expenses. Now, keep in mind, although the overall allocation is 8,000 ringgit, only 1,000 ringgit is for medical examination. Still, that's a lot more. That's double from the previous year of assessment.
Yep.
So just keep that in mind, right? Because the medical
There's also the
expenses
little bit
overall,
where, sorry, sorry to butt in,
no,
but
no,
like the
please.
1,000 ringgit now also covers COVID examinations, right? Because earlier this
Correct.
year, I think a
Yes.
lot of people were doing that,
Yeah.
and Finance Minister actually has mentioned that they increased the allocation from 500 to 1,000 to cover for you for your COVID testings. Last time it
Correct.
was really
So
expensive.
yeah, now you can get it in the store. But
Exactly.
essentially, what I want to emphasize here is that the medical expenses overall, serious diseases and fertility treatments, terms and conditions apply. Okay, so be sure to look through the what exactly they classify as these kind of treatments is very important. Don't simply go and spend. But the 1,000 ringgit is for medical examination, so complete medical examination, and that's something you can utilize for various kinds of medical examinations, including test kits or tests that you have to undergo. And the last one is, I think, one of those underrated is SSPN. If you have a child, key point here is if you have a
If you have to.
child, right now, you can get up to 8,000 ringgit tax relief by depositing up to a net deposit of up to 8,000 ringgit in SSPN, which is the Scheme Simpanan Pendidikan Nasional.
Yep.
It's a government-backed initiative to help save up for children's education or education in general. And so far, I think over the last few years, we're looking at like a 4%
Yep.
dividend or
Actually,
return
it's pretty
rate.
good.
It's been constant. It actually has been unmoved, unchanged. The median, I can't remember, I have this data somewhere, but the median and all of that's a bit different. But anyway, these are the kind of things you can act upon in the next 6 weeks or so, or 4 weeks or 2 weeks, to ensure that you, well, can reduce your tax bill, essentially, effectively reduce your tax bill.
Yep.
I do want to provide a bit of context here, right? Because the savings will depend on the kind of bracket you are in. And obviously, the higher the bracket, the more you're paying on any additional income above that bracket. Again, sorry if that's confusing, but essentially, what we're looking at is if you are in the 70,000 to 100,000 ringgit bracket, you're saving effectively 21% for each ringgit that you spend. So within that bracket, okay, once you start going to a different bracket, it becomes more complicated. But effectively, Malaysia's taxation is progressive, so it is. You know, if I go into it, it's going to be just way more confusing. Let me just focus on the slide here, okay?
Yeah.
All right. So, effectively, the way we look at it is for every 1,000 ringgit that you spend, these are the kinds of levels that you can estimate to save. Okay. So if you're on the lowest, okay, so if your chargeable income is up to 20,000 ringgit, you're looking at only 10 ringgit per 1,000 ringgit. because, well, the tax rate for any additional income is 1%.
Yeah.
Um, and that goes all the way up to 24%. I think the bracket after 250,000 is 24.5%. And what we're looking here. Yeah, so I think typically we're looking at the 50,000 to 70,000. And remember, this is chargeable income, not your annual income bracket. Okay, so do keep this in mind before you spend money on your tax reliefs, because if you wanted to buy it anyway, that particular tax relief, or you every year you do your PRS anyway, then it's a great thing. But if you're doing it just for the sake of tax reliefs, this is
Maximizing.
something to, yeah, there's sometimes maximizing for the sake of maximizing may not be efficient,
Yeah.
or may not provide the returns that you want, especially depending on your tax bracket. But here's another example, right? So I mentioned that we're going to talk about the lifestyle plus, as I
Mm,
like to call it.
that's true.
So if you wanted to buy a phone which is 4,000 ringgit, this is the difference in the different brackets, chargeable income brackets that we're talking about. 50,000 ringgit, the tax bill is 1,800 ringgit right now. 70,000, 4,006. 100,000 ringgit, 10,900 ringgit. Okay. You minus the relief for each of them, the chargeable income falls respectively. The tax bill also falls. All right. So the savings for here, we're looking at 320 ringgit. The savings over here, we're looking at, where are we? 560, and the savings over here is about 840 ringgit. So it really does depend on the bracket. It's important to also pay attention to that.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is just a bit of context, really. And ultimately, this is the kind of, in summary, TLDR. Tax reliefs can be used to reduce your chargeable income, thus reducing your tax bill. But I really would like to emphasize the point that a tax relief isn't a license to spend. The decision needs to be based upon your needs and your affordability, right? Don't simply spend just because, oh, but the government said I can spend up to 3,000 ringgit on life insurance. Well, you may not need to spend 3,000 ringgit on life insurance. Maybe 1,000 ringgit on life insurance will cover your needs, which can happen with a lot of term life coverage, right?
That's
So
true.
you don't need to spend the maximum to reduce your taxes, because you may be wasting money buying something you don't need, or overspending in general. And then tax savings, of course, will depend on the tax bracket. The higher the tax rate, the more savings per ringgit spent, or per ringgit offset from the chargeable income.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's pretty much it, Pan. This is like a little bit of a mini guide as you go into the end of the year, looking at the different kind of tax reliefs you may want to get to save some money on your tax bill. Maybe get a return next year.
That's true. That's true. I mean, I think what's a pretty important point that you pointed out there as well is that you have a little bit of time to kind of do this, and we gave some pointers on like what are the areas that we can look into. But that bit about license to spend, I think that's a pretty important aspect to remember, right? Because some people are already looking, oh wow, they've extended the tax relief for lifestyle purchases. I'm gonna get my new iPhone, for example, right? And that's true. That actually does happen to some people, and they're like, oh
Yes.
yeah, I mean, I get an instant 21%, 24% off, but you're spending what 5,000 up to 5,000 ringgit just to get that 800 ringgit in savings. So it may not really have that impact. But for other things, right? Like what you said, like underrated things like SSPN. If you have a child, 8,000 ringgit. That's it's savings, not spending. So technically, that's a pretty good thing as well. That kind of encourages you to spend, which is encourages you to save, which is what the government's asking you to do anyway, right?
Correct.
So that's things to keep in mind. Like I think what you point out, your TLDR is on point. Uh, you know, they reduce your chargeable income by maximizing tax relief, and there's still time. And then maybe hopefully next year you're better prepared, right? Just kind of stay on top of things. Our blog has an income tax guide to kind of guide you along on which areas that you can look into for tax relief maximization, and so that you don't end up like me last time when I didn't have enough time for the cutoff point for PRS was I think like 24th December, and I tried to do it at the end, and they suddenly said sorry, PRS deposits for this year has closed. I'm like, oh. So yeah, no, that's some anecdotes to kind of share in this episode.
At the very least, start at the beginning of December. Try and get it done in the first week of December, because if you say the whole month of December, I find personal from anecdotal experience that you end up, and I guess you will end up in that situation, Pang, where you're ending up close to Christmas week, and you have to remember that public holidays also make things slower. So just keep that in
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah. So yeah, that's we hope you had some really good perspectives after you've watched this, everyone. But thanks, Roshan. You shared some pertinent points when it comes to tax reliefs. It's confusing, but in the higher income brackets, you can actually save and shave off quite a bit from your income tax. So thanks a lot for sharing, Roshan. And for everyone else, if you want to hear more about Roshan talking about tax planning, well, him and other licensed financial planners, you can check out Ringgit Plus Financial Planner. It is a one-to-one financial planning service to get you started if you have not, or to give you a sounding board to see how you're progressing with your financial goals, regardless of what they may be. Ringgit Plus Financial Planner covers every part of financial planning service, from tax efficiency all the way down to wealth planning, retirement savings, and really a lot more. So check out the QR code, scan the QR code if you want to find out more. But yeah, really, thanks so much, Roshan, for joining me on this episode. I will definitely talk to you more about this income tax stuff next time.
Always a pleasure, Pa.
All right, all right. And for everyone else, please stay safe, and I'll catch you all in the next episode.